Professor, are there ways, do you think, where, and perhaps you've answered already, but are there ways in which action learning and traditional methods can move together and advance? You gave the Perth example. Yeah. Are there others where you see a harmonious relationship there?
Well, don't forget that it's very difficult in this life to get a new idea anywhere. There was a famous German philosopher, poor chap, died mentally disturbed, a fellow called Nietzsche. Alas, he had a very powerful influence on that German fellow. What was his name? Schicklgruber, Hitler. But he said, while he was still young and sane, he said, if you think you have a new idea, see what happens. Unless it is opposed by the stupid and ridiculed by the clever, it can have nothing new in it. So therefore drop it. So if you come forward with any new idea anywhere, the greatest compliment you can be paid is to find yourself being ridiculed by a professor, say, of sociology or economics. That shows that you're onto something new. But after 2 or 3 decades, things begin to change. And I notice that, particularly in Australia, the universities here are very interested in action learning. I've been talking about it at several, at Deakin, at Murdoch, at Hawkesbury, and now here, of course, in the 2 universities in Brisbane. They're very positive indeed. But exactly how you introduce a new idea into a system is not for me to say. The people running the system will do that. But I'm quite sure that given a little while, it'll be accepted, all right. Whether they'll have a professor of action learning, I don't know. I would strongly advise against it, because if they do, then somebody will begin to say, but action learning has a definite structure. You can either be an expert in it or you can't. But once you reach that point, drop action learning altogether. It must rely upon you, as Rutherford said. What impresses me is my own bloody ignorance. What does yours look like to you? That's the essence of action learning. But I'm quite sure the spirit of it will percolate all through the universities. And I can see it happening already here in Australia. Even in Europe, there is now the European universities in Finland, the Netherlands, Spain, Germany, France. I haven't yet met one in England, but the European universities have now set up an organization called the European Association for the Strategic Management of Universities, and they've written to me to say, could I talk to them about action learning? But don't think that anything's going to happen by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning or even by this time next week. It may take a year or two, but it's coming, all right.
From what you've said, Professor Revans, one of the interesting things that occurs to me is that action learning is something like the links between different disciplines, and it's allowing people to think across disciplines. Would you see this as one of the valuable aspects of action learning in the future? How we might proceed to develop action learning theories and concepts along those lines?
Well, I think the fundamental concept is so simple that, well, I should be extremely interested to see illustrations of it being applied. But I think the idea is so simple that if you have some very complex set of conditions, and those conditions may be wider even than the group of people around them. Let me give an example. You must have heard of a chap called Isaac Newton. When Isaac Newton was an old man, but not as old as I am at the present moment, let me assure you, somebody said to him, well, Isaac, what have you found in life? After all, Isaac Newton was the first man to demonstrate that the universe is one gigantic mechanism. He brought in the laws of universal gravitation. He explained to us what is the nature of light. He invented differential calculus and so forth. So he thought of a few things. But he said, I feel all my life like a little boy who has been wandering along a beach. And from time to time, he said, I picked up a beautiful stone and looked at it and thought how lovely it was, or a shell, and saw what a beautiful thing that was. And he said, I gave a little attention to these. I might even have written something about them. But in front of me was the whole ocean of my ignorance, which I didn't know. If this idea of Newton's could be become much more the spirit of the universities, I think that would mean that we'd have people from different professions, different walks of life, masters of different disciplines, who would all say, well, we've got a little stone here or a little shell there, but if what we're exploring is the whole beach, for heaven's sake, let's get together and explore together. If I'm going to explore the beach with you, I should want to know something of what you're thinking and what I'm thinking, but don't let's run away with the idea that because there's 20 of us here, we understand the whole lot. Not at all. So I think this action learning I would like to see it as something mentioned and talked about in universities, but not professed by some particular lot of people. Otherwise, they'd imprison it in their own, and it would cease to be doing what it is doing.
How do we actually get people to think along those lines?
Oh, I think it's happening. I think that the world, the complexity of the world is now being noticed by a lot of people. They see that you cannot solve the complex problems of reality by engaging highly specialized people here and there, even though they call themselves specialized generalists or so forth. So when I see where action learning has worked in hospitals, in the care of the mentally handicapped, in international banking, even the Public Service Board of Victoria used it to reorganize the State Coordination Council. Good heavens, it'll be a long time before Margaret Thatcher says, come and reorganize the Cabinet Office. Let the Cabinet Office reorganize itself by action learning. But the range of its application is now so vast that to try and concentrate and say it belongs in this field would be totally wrong.
Mm.